Number 10, Tomb Raider. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the Tomb Raider series, and no, this isn't the latest installment in the franchise, but this 2013 reboot is a very well crafted and fun action-adventure game. Of course, you play as Lara as she sets out for her first expedition on a ship called the Endurance, with the intention of finding a lost kingdom. The ship is then struck by a heavy storm and leaves the ship in ruins, leaving all of the survivors stranded on a very isolated island. Lara is then captured by a creepy guy, and that's where you come in to try and pick up the pieces, save your friends, discover many mysteries of the island, and to help Lara and her friends escape it. This game is very cheap at the moment and is available on the old gen platforms, so it's very accessible to a lot of gamers. I have the PC version and it's very well optimized and runs like an absolute dream. One last thing I will note is that it is a very linear game despite the game's efforts to make you find all of the hidden tombs, a great little action adventure gem. Number 9, BIOSHOCK. You play as a guy called Jack who is a passenger on a plane that crashes into the Atlantic Ocean. After surviving something that seems nearly impossible, you make your way to a nearby lighthouse where you are then sent to the hidden underwater world of Rapture. This game is pretty damn old, but it still holds up very well today. Released in 2007, nobody had seen anything quite like it. The gunplay is very solid and responsive, and for its time, the game design was second to none. Although on the outside it seems like a generic shooter, you have to spend a few hours with this game before you really give an impression. The story is one of the best elements of the BioShock games, and it's one of the very few franchises I've played and completed every single iteration of. All three BioShock games are great, and you can buy these games super cheap now. Number 8, Fear 2. The sequel to Fear continues the supernatural suspense story of the supernatural being Alma Wade, whose rage against those who wronged her caused her to begin an escalating paranormal crisis that threatens to devour and replace reality with her own. Instead of playing as the Point Man, the game's protagonist is Michael Beckett, a Delta Force operator whose squad is sent in to arrest Genevieve Aristide. I really enjoyed this game and it's definitely underrated in my opinion. Sure, it might act like any other shooter in terms of mechanics, but the gunplay was extremely satisfying even for 2008. The difficulty is perfectly balanced and it never felt unfair. Not only does it have solid shooting mechanics, but the story is also nothing to sneeze at. What made me finish this game were the horror elements that are very well sprinkled throughout the certain acts. It's kind of like a perfect cake in that respect. It has plenty of icing that makes it sweet, but not too much icing that it's bittersweet. And Fear 2 struck a nice balance in my opinion. If you're looking for a great action shooter with jump scares and horror elements, get this game because it's chum change right now. Number 7, DREADOUT. A group of teenagers go astray during their vacation trip to Indonesia, where they discover a deserted town. They soon realise that something is odd and wrong about this town, expecting the very worst. Linda, the protagonist, realises something mystical is happening to her and gains a mystical power that could save her and her friends. DREADOUT is a third-person psychological survival horror game that uses mechanics similar to those found in the Fatal Frame series, but with a modern twist. The player character Linda uses modern gadgets such as smartphones and digital video cameras to interact with or fend off various types of Indonesian mythical ghosts and to help her solve various puzzles in the deserted town. When Linda dies in the game, she awakens in darkness surrounded by candles with a bright light in the distance. By running towards the light, Linda will come back to life. Obviously this isn't a AAA title and the visuals look like something straight out of the PS2, but this little indie gem is definitely worth getting on sale, and this game will definitely be on sale during the Steam summer sale. The voice acting is decent but not amazing, and the game doesn't always make things very clear, but if you can look past these flaws, it's a decent time killer to have in your collection. Number 6, Borderlands 2. 5 years have passed since the events of Borderlands, when the 4 Vault Hunters, Roland, Mordecai, Lilith and Brick, were guided by a mysterious entity known as the Guardian Angel on the planet of Pandora to the Vault, a mysterious alien structure that was rumoured to hold ancient and exotic technology and riches. Instead, these Vault Hunters were confronted by an alien abomination known as the Destroyer inside the Vault. After defeating the Destroyer, a valuable mineral called iridium started flourishing through the Pandora's crust. Handsome Jack, the president of the Hyperion Corporation, secures this new resource and makes use of it to attempt to bring peace to the planet. Now, Handsome Jack rules over the inhabitants of Pandora with an iron fist from his massive satellite built in the shape of a H. Meanwhile, rumours of an even larger vault hidden on Pandora spread across the galaxy, drawing a new group of Vault Hunters to the planet in search of it. So Borderlands may just be another FPS, but but just like with other FPS games on this list, it feels and gives more to the player than just tight shooting mechanics. With the Borderlands series, they are fantastic shooters that incorporate light RPG elements and a slight feeling of freedom with the amount of open areas you get to explore. Both Borderlands games are fantastic, but I picked the second one because it's just Borderlands 1 but with way more guns to play around with. With a rich leveling system, Borderlands is a shooter that makes you feel like you're achieving, which a lot of games seem to miss nowadays. Number 5. Shadow Warrior. Lo Wang is a bodyguard for Zilla Enterprises which has control over every major industry in Japan. However, this has led to corruption. Master Zilla, the president of the Zilla Enterprise, is planning to conquer Japan using creatures from the dark side. When he discovers this, Lo Wang quit his job as a bodyguard. Master Zilla realizes the threat that Lo Wang possesses and sends his creatures to battle him. Another first-person shooter, but this FPS has definite style. When playing this game, I love the sheer amount of brutality I could embark on my enemies. When I sliced someone in half with my katana or blew off a demon's head with my powerful handgun, it really felt satisfying. The frame rate is butter smooth on PC and I'm sure the console versions run just as well. If you're concerned about getting bored, there's many different fortune cookies to collect throughout the game, just like beforehand, and many other collectibles to find. If you don't like linear games, you'll probably lose interest in this one, but it's definitely worth picking up for sure. Number 4. Resident Evil 4. 6 years after the events of Resident Evil 2, former Raccoon City police officer Leon S. Kennedy is sent on a mission to rescue Ashley Graham, the US president's daughter, who has been kidnapped by a mysterious cult. He travels to a nameless rural village in an unspecified part of Spain, where he encounters a group of hostile villagers who pledge their lives to the Los Eliminados, the cult that kidnapped Ashley. This game is an absolute classic, with Capcom releasing this on pretty much everything they possibly can. It's getting harder and harder for gamers to not pick this game up if they haven't already. If you're a horror fan like me, you will appreciate the perfect balance of action and horror the fourth installment brings to the table. Even to this day, many Resident Evil fans think this game is the best in the series, and I'd have to agree. Not many games make me feel a sense of terror like this game, and it does it better than any other action horror game in the genre. The controls are tight compared to the previous releases, where the clunky control scheme was a bit of a put off for many gamers, making it the complete survival horror game. Number 3. Dead Rising 2. 5 years after the events of Dead Rising, former motocross champion Chuck Green is in the fictional casino town of Fortune City, Nevada, to take part in A Terror is Reality, a controversial sports entertainment game show where contestants kill zombies for money and fame. Chuck needs the money to buy Zombrex, a daily medication that suppresses the zombification process for his daughter Katie, who was bitten by her zombified mother during a previous outbreak in Las Vegas when she was only 4 years old. While backstage after the show's supply of zombies is released. Chuck rescues Katie and makes his way to an emergency shelter, which is sealed off after their arrival. Raymond Sullivan, the only security guard to reach the shelter alive, is initially reluctant to let the infected Katie in, but Chuck promises to keep her supplied with Zombrex until the military arrives in 3 days. I chose Dead Rising 2 because I think it's the best in the series. It took everything that was great about the first game and improved it, even adding in some new mechanics that weren't present in the first game. Dead Rising 2 is the perfect chill out game where you don't really have to think about what you're doing and you can pretty much have the time of your life as you wander around a zombie infested Las Vegas mall and kill anything undead that comes in your way. I'm pretty sure Dead Rising is the only series where I can throw a life-size dice at zombies without a care in the world. There's a host of side missions you can undertake if you don't feel like doing the main cases, but be aware that the main cases have a time limit, so make sure you get back to the case before it ends, otherwise you'll fail the game. They aren't bad, but whenever I'm under a time limit, no matter how long it is, I always feel a sense of uneasiness, wondering if I'll ever have enough time to save a certain survivor, etc. Number 2. Alan Wake. Alan Wake is a best-selling psychological thriller author, but has been suffering from a 2-year stretch from writer's block. He and his wife Alice travel to the Washington state mountain town of Bright Falls for a short vacation on the advice of Alice and his friend and agent Barry Wheeler. Before arrival, Alan has a nightmare about shadowy figures who tried to harm him before another figure interrupts his dream and teaches him how to use a light to fight the shadows. On their arrival, Alan retrieves the keys and the map to their rented cabin, unaware the woman supplying the keys wasn't the landlord. I can't stress enough to you guys how awesome this game is. I picked up the collector's edition of this game on PC for a total of £7. That is pretty insane. It's a real shame this game was a total flop in terms of sales, because you can look anywhere, even places like IGN, and you'll see stellar ratings, and after playing this game and completing it, it's easy to see why. In the game, a darkness is taking over humans, animals and objects. These enemies, dubbed the Taken, are mysterious shadows that attack Wake, wielding weapons of their own, ranging from mallets and knives to shovels and chainsaws. They vary by speed, size and the amount of damage they can take, and some can teleport between short distances. Your flashlight is your best friend in this game, and you'll be using that throughout the game to take down the shields of the Taken before putting them down with bullets, which is an aspect I really love about this game. Constantly checking to see if I was out of batteries made the game feel very challenging to me. I have to mention the amazing voice acting as well. When you get to certain stages of the game, the main character narrates the events up until that point. Fantastically written game, and is well worth playing and is well worth the money. Number 1. The Wolf Among Us. The Wolf Among Us is set in the year 1986, decades before the events of the first issue of Fables. For years, many of the magical and mystical lands described in myth, legend and folklore have been occupied by an enigmatic tyrant known as the Adversary. To escape the Adversary's marauding armies, many creatures and characters known as Fables fled to the mundane world and created an enclave known as Fabletown in colonial America. To mask their presence from the native humans, referred to as Mundis, all non-human Fables have to purchase an enchantment known as the Glamour, which allows them to appear human. The reformed Big Bad Wolf, Bigby Wolf, voiced by Adam Harrington, is the sheriff of Fabletown and is responsible for hiding the community from the wider world and enforcing its laws. You might recognise that this game looks very similar to the highly acclaimed The Walking Dead, and that's because it's made from the same developers, and these guys really know how to tell a story. If you're looking for gameplay over story, you won't be getting it here. You really won't be doing much apart from talking to a lot of the characters and responding to quick time events, but the main course of this game is simply the story. If you love story-driven, episodic games like me, then you'll love what this game has to offer. Not only that, but you feel like a total badass when playing as Bigby the Wolf, gathering clues to crack a case. It's just really satisfying stuff. So that's it for my top 10 games to play this summer, guys. I hope you enjoyed and found at least one new game to try out. That's it from me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.